Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Knowledge Central. And yeah, I realize it's been a little longer than I used to post before. I think I gave a pretty huge gap. But yeah, I think I just need to make sure that I give contents pretty regularly. And yeah, I think so. Let's get right into it. So yeah, again, this is a series of book summaries where I'll be talking about the top insights from the book. And also, I have other playlists, but I'm still working on it, especially to create quality content, especially a bit more on the side of motivation, career, especially my role uh, in the company I work as a data engineer. So I have a lot of insights which I'm working on. So yeah, the idea is to just keep populating the channel with content, and I really hope it helps. So yeah, let's get into today's video. And the book I'm going to talk about is How to Be Right. This itself sounds a little kind of surprise, or why we should always be right and etc. But this book's mostly deals with how people think and put their views in, for example, social media, television, when we talk to friends, etc. And it's really important to be aware, and especially when we are having a debate, especially like when people come across a little bit defensive, or when we have more provocative arguments, and the term political correctness, for example. And sometimes people love to debate, just kind of disagree with everything you say. But at the same time, sometimes we need to, also be aware that if you're going to debate or argue against something, what's the purpose of it and what's the intention behind it? And are we going to get something out of it? At least from my point of view, it's really important to understand, and then come to common ground conclusion. Especially everything, any topic, if you want to talk about, it's going to have pros and cons, right? Positives and negatives. The idea is to just outweigh them, and which is probably a more effective solution. And as I always say in some of the previous books, we should always think about long term, right? We can't just like that put a band-aid for a particular solution, and then a few days or few weeks or months, it might actually get more worse. So the idea is to have a more concrete, thoughtful decision. And this book again tells how to be aware and what potholes to look for, especially when you are arguing or when you're listening to an argument or a debate, right? And let me start with my usual style of the favorite quote from the author, where it's quite deep, to be frank, because comforting lies sometimes get more attention, right? More clicks, viewers, listeners, profits than uncomfortable truths, right? So this is a very, very wrong intention. The whole idea is just what I meant in the beginning, right? It depends on the purpose and the intention. And if this is the case, especially media these days might easily twist the facts and especially turn the perspective around. And when you put certain things in a particular context, it seems more, dramatic, or it seems more of a pressing issue. But the underlining truths might sometimes be uncomfortable, or sometimes might not attract people to what their channel or social media or shares, etc., etc. So that shouldn't be the agenda, right? And that's what I really feel. Nowadays social media have some agenda which makes them really biased, right? So it's really important to make sure that you understand, you probably do your own homework, research, before actually spreading it or believing a certain information we see. Starting from the first insight, as I already mentioned slightly, the role of social media nowadays is really important, especially for youngsters, even for kids. I have a 3-year-old nephew, and I think he has much more screen time than me. So, it's really important. So everybody nowadays, from the child of 2, 3 years old till, there's no limit for age, people using social media. Everybody sees the information, right? Everybody has an access to social media. So it's really important to make sure that to understand what's the agenda, or say, for example, what's the intention behind a particular news channel, social media, YouTube channel, etc., etc., etc. So it's really important. So the media can literally twist facts, as I mentioned. It may not be twisting facts, but the way they put it sometimes might be really tricky, and it might bias our opinion, or it might push people to a certain places. So it's really important, and we need to be aware that media can always favor any parties or any particular group of people, and which will have kind of an effect on us as well. And so it's really important to be aware that media can be favorable to certain people. And from my point of view, I really feel they shouldn't have any agenda. And whenever a social media platform, television, news channel, documentary, if they have an agenda in mind, it is going to be biased towards the agenda, right? So you need to be aware of that agenda, why they're doing it, what they're doing, and then probably also analyze similar situations outside or other people's view too before coming to a conclusion. So make sure that not blindly trust media. They're always going to probably have an agenda. Make sure the agenda is not biased, but there's a high chance that that might be a bias. The second one is a pretty fancy term, political correctness. And this is nowadays, I think, also getting really famous with lots of people, personality, and especially, uh, you know, it's a pretty sensitive topic, right? But the really important, or the main problem is sometimes it's seen as offensive, right? Even though something is true, and we actually kind of get offended or get upset easily. And it's also very easy not to offend anyone if you don't know what exactly it means, right? Because sometimes I might be telling relative to me, but it might actually sound offensive to somebody else. And especially things like, for example, talking about weight, or talking about height, or any physical appearance, and or talking about color. We need to be really careful in putting all these terms, and even a slight misuse, or even me telling out a word itself would be treated as a little bit sexist or fat shaming, or for example uh racist, etc., etc., etc. So I didn't say any of these words because I know it's really important not to bring controversial information, or basically not to offend anybody. And this is actually created a problem. Like, for example, I need to think about every word I'm going to say, every line, and I need to make sure that it's not going to offend anyone. In order to actually make sure, I might actually miss some of the important truths and some things which are actually happening. But since I want to be politically correct, I want to sound politically correct, I don't want to end up in a controversy, or you know become a part of a huge debate or something. So the idea is I might not even speak about something. So that's something which is not important. So we need to actually come to, it's a very gray area, and we need to accept the fact that few things, when put, it might be a little bit sad, hurtful, but if it's the truth, we need to accept and probably learn how to overcome it, improve it, and be better version of ourselves. I mean, most of the videos I also tell about, it's always we versus we, like you versus you as a person. And not only people do get more divided based on this, and it's also makes people afraid to speak their minds, right? And is this actually the place or this kind of debate we want to have, right? And many topics, for example, there's a lot of issues regarding gender equality, and a lot of issues regarding uh, for example, types of gender, how many types are there, which is correct, which is not correct, and people identifying themselves as certain uh, gender or certain identity. And I think you are more aware of what I'm talking about. So all these things are really a touchy topic and really sensitive. And when people start thinking about the political correctness, not offending anyone, we kind of miss the whole point. And we start, fighting against each other. So I'm saying this, I'm right. I'm saying this, I'm right. But we need to actually analyze what's the situation, why are we doing it, and again, what's the agenda behind it. And I recently actually heard a very important, a very nice kind of a concept where the person actually says, when we put 100 red ants and 100 black ants in a jar, they are probably going to be in harmony. They are not going to do anything. They're going to probably just keep moving around, and quite literally just they are okay, right? Being together. But if I actually shake the jar, right, really fast, or if I just tap the jar a couple of times, what actually happens is really surprising. The red ants actually start eating the black ants or killing the black ants, and the black ants actually, of course, uh, start killing the red ants, thinking that they are mutually their enemies. Like, red ants will think black ants is the enemy, but black ants think red ants is the enemy. But what actually happened is I shook the jar. So technically, or whoever shook the jar is the enemy. So we need to be really aware of that situation, right? There are two people, and you know, sometimes you might be debating about something, sometimes you might be talking about certain, a little bit uh provocative arguments, but then who actually provoked that two groups of people? That's more important. And what's their agenda behind it? So all of these things we need to be really aware and give it a thought, take a step back, and what are, the whole mission goal of whatever we're trying to achieve. It's something important. And then, fix a goal, fix exactly what you want to see in yourself, in the world, in your surroundings, in your family, say 20, 30 years down the line. And, make sure that makes sense. And then that's how we need to go about it. So not blindly, thinking that, okay, whoever I'm arguing against is my enemy, and then I'm going to outperform them, or I'm going to say something which, to prove my point, etc., etc. It's a little bit still have to get in shape. So make sure that you're aware of that. And I think to also keep the video short, I think this is my final point from this book, How to Be Right, is again, social media, especially the news they spread. And this I've also seen even within my family. Sometimes my mom sees something in WhatsApp or social media, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but blindfoldly believing it, and then also share it to me. And then sometimes I might share it to my friends, believing that it's true. But actually, we need to do our homework. As I already mentioned, we need to do our research, right? And one of the most really awesome quotes, or one of my favorite quotes from the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, where he says this multiple times in his book. It's actually an acronym called YCAD. That's what I pronounce it. It's basically what you see is all there is, right? This simple sentence is pretty deep. I literally getting goosebumps right now. So what you see is all there is. That's it. Your brain, your mind just knows what you're being told, what you're seeing, what you're being taught from your childhood, right? Your brain cannot create new information by itself. You basically say your points, argue, debate, you have an opinion, everything based on what you see, right? What you see is all theirs. You probably would have learned in school, from your parents, from your friends, social media, paper, etc., etc., etc. That's it. You have no clue the ton of information you don't know, right? So first of all, we need to accept the fact that what we see is all there is. That's it. But then we don't know the other side. We don't know the other perspective. So first of all, we need to get to the mindset that we don't know everything, right? What we see in social media may not be true. Sometimes it might be true. Sometimes it might not be. So we need to make sure to be aware and be critical about whatever we see, whatever we read, whatever posts we come across. Because sometimes in social media, again, I have also fallen into this trap where you see a short clip of a particular, documentary or a particular motivation speaker saying something, and then think, oh, wow, this is good, this is great. But then you don't know the context, you don't know the other things. It might not be applicable to large set of people. So it's really important, and especially with the increasing number of people are able to share their opinions. Again, as I mentioned, from a small kid who are doing Instagram reels and TikToks. So we need to make sure that anything we say in social media are kind of be valid, do our own research, do our own homework, and also probably put a disclaimer saying that based on research, based on the information I've known. At the same time, when you're seeing somebody else's post, video, content, make sure you're being critical, right? Get to the bottom of it. Make sure that you make an informed decision, not just because of the post, but also based on your own homework. So yeah, those are the three things about social media, political correctness, and the opinions. The idea is to be more critical, be more aware, do a little bit digging, try to see the other side, and then make a more constructive and conscious decision, or then talk about, arguing or healthy debate is always appreciated. And I really love discussing, especially things, and especially how people have different point of view, then supporting your point of view, really nice. But at the same time, listen and try to understand the other person's point of view. Where is it coming from? What are their examples? There might be something which is really crucial or important, which you might be missing. So with that, I think I'll wrap up this video, and yeah, just be aware, and yeah, have an awesome day, guys. Cheers.